You're listening to the Neighborhood Bulldog, where the porch light's always on and the maroon runs deep. I'm Scott Neighbors, and this is your home for real Mississippi State sports talk. Around here, we don't chase headlines. We break down the wins, the losses, the culture, and what it really means to be a Bulldog. If it matters in Starkville, it matters here. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, and welcome to the neighborhood. Hail State. Welcome into another episode of the Neighborhood Bulldog, where we are going to get you geared up for a massive, massive series this upcoming Easter weekend between the Georgia Bulldogs and your Mississippi State Bulldogs at Duty Noble Field. This series will be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series due to Easter Sunday. But that does not mean anything for what this series means as a whole to both of these teams' seasons. Georgia, who is coached by former Mississippi State Bulldogs Will Coggin and former Bulldog catcher, my good friend Nick Amorati, having a monstrous year, especially offensively, just smashing home runs left and right. We'll get into that a little later. But two former Bulldogs coming home, except they're in the wrong dugout. Georgia coming to Duty Noble, coming in 24-6 overall with a 7-2 SEC record. Mississippi State comes into this series 25-4, also with a 7-2 SEC record. As we talked about the other night, both of these teams are tied with the Texas Longhorns in a three-way tie for first place in the SEC. We're about 8 series into the season as a whole, and for Mississippi State fans, the last several seasons, to have a team that is in contention to win the SEC this far into the season is something we would have dreamed of 3 or 4 years ago. Something that I think we really all thought was going to happen continuously once we finally broke through and won that national championship in 2021. However, we know what happened since then. Mississippi State wins the national title and then does absolutely nothing to capitalize on having won the national title. Just an embarrassing fall off from grace for that former coaching staff and the Mississippi State program. We're back with an elite leader, an elite staff, and an elite team. So tied for first place in the SEC. Of course, Georgia and Mississippi State play each other this weekend. So depending on how Texas does, Texas may end up holding that lone spot, or it could be the winner of this series that holds that lone spot in first place. So we mentioned Georgia's record. They come in 24-6. For me, it's about who those 6 losses are to more than anything else. Those 6 losses that Georgia has are to Wright State, a bad Troy team, Western Carolina. They lose 1 to Tennessee, they lose 1 to Texas A&M, and they lose to Kennesaw State. So some bad, bad losses among those 6. Meanwhile, Mississippi State's losses are to the number 1 team in the country by a run, the number 10 team in the country by a run on the road, and the number 5 team in the country on the road. So as losses stack up, Mississippi State's losses are a good bit better. And once Tarleton State went and beat the Texas Longhorns, I believe that means Mississippi State continues to be the only SEC team to avoid a majorly embarrassing midweek loss. You had Ole Miss lose to Memphis last week and then get swept by Mississippi State. We'll dive into some SEC scores from this week, but you have Georgia here who's lost to Troy, Western Carolina, Kennesaw State, and then that Wright State loss was on one of the first series of the year. The story with Georgia is offensive firepower. That is what you get with this team. We talked about last week with Ole Miss. Ole Miss is known for hitting home runs. However, they have nothing else. They cannot manufacture runs whatsoever unless you walk them or give up errors that put men on base, and then you give up those 2 and 3 run home runs. That's how Ole Miss wins games. If you do not give up free bases, then Ole Miss is likely not winning that ball game. They leave a lot of men on base. Now with Georgia, Ole Miss does hit a lot of home runs. It is not on the plane that Georgia is. Georgia Bulldogs have hit 87 home runs as a team this season. That is the most in college baseball by 30 or 40 home runs. Not only are they number one in home runs, they have that massive separation there. And so they are just playing smash ball over in Athens. Now, the Georgia Bulldog baseball field is pretty small. However, they are hitting them everywhere. And when you have the firepower they have on offense, it makes sense why they're tied for first in the SEC at this point in the season. So for comparison, one thing that's been impressive about Mississippi State has been the batting averages this far into the year. You've had true freshmen such as Jacob Parker that their batting averages didn't dip when they got to SEC play. They got better. And you don't see that very often. Right now, as it stands today, Georgia has 10 guys on the team batting 300 or better, and some of those over 400. Mississippi State has 14 guys that are batting over 300 as a team. Okay. Those home runs that Georgia hits are on the backs of 4 players. You have Trey Phelps, the superstar third baseman for Georgia, a junior third baseman, currently batting 423 on the year with 12 home runs, 31 RBIs. He has a slugging percentage of 827, and he also has 11 walks to 17 Ks. So he's not just up there head hunting. He's patient. He's waiting for his pitch, and he can hit the ball an absolute mile. So he is one that if you are Mississippi State's pitchers, you have to find a way to not put people on base in front of him and keep him in the ballpark. The best player all around on Georgia's team to me is junior catcher Daniel Jackson, batting 412 with 16 home runs, 47 RBIs, and absurd 904 slugging percentage. And he has 18 walks to 24 strikeouts. Not only is he a monster of a hitter, how many catchers do you see in the country that are 14 of 15 on stolen base attempts as a runner? You don't see that with catchers very often. So this guy is the total package, a 5 tool player, going to go very high in the draft, in my opinion. But those 16 home runs and 47 RBIs are just absurd. Then you're followed by Colby Branch, shortstop for Georgia. He's batting 272, but also has double digit home runs with 13, 34 RBIs, a 699 slug, 19 walks to 29 Ks. So he does strike out a little bit. Um, and then rounding it out with Brennan Hudson, 11 home runs, 261 average, 25 RBIs, 768 slugging, 17 walks to 16 Ks. So again, another patient hitter. That's what I like to see. I like to see batters where your walks and strikeouts kind of match up and are pretty even or within a few of each other. That tells me you're not just up there swinging at anything. So those 4 players are the 4 players that are in double digit home runs for Georgia. How many players does Mississippi State have with double digit home runs? The answer is 0. Ace Reese is leading the team with 8 home runs, I believe. So you're talking about a lineup that Mississippi State pitching has not faced yet. And so, yes, this series is extremely important for us to win. And my goodness, if we could sweep, that would just be the cherry on top. But this offense is going to score runs against Mississippi State. They are going to. And we are going to have to play extremely clean. We're going to have to avoid walking the first two batters and then giving up a beach ball for a 3-run home run late in the game. Um, we're going to have to be very careful as these batters come up. You cannot have free bases in this series. You've got to limit the walks to absolute minimal because they will hurt you severely if you put people on. Um, on the mound for Georgia, Mississippi State has got their work cut out for them. Joey Volchko is who I believe will start on Friday for Georgia. He comes in with a 5-0 record, a 3.93 ERA. He's pitched 34 innings, 15 runs, given up 18 walks, but has 39 Ks. Again, there's a good separation there, and opponents are hitting 238 off of him. So batters can hit for average off of him a little bit. However, he does obviously have that strikeout pitch to put hitters away. On Friday, I think we're going to see Dylan Veig or Vigu. I have no idea how to say that name. He's got a 3-1 record, a 3.03 ERA, 29 innings, 10 runs, 15 walks to 36 Ks. So again, another pitcher that can put hitters away with that third strike. And opponents on him are only hitting 181. So there's your first two games of the series right there. And I would say Mississippi State hitters, they've got their work cut out for them in both of these games. Um, Saturday, we are likely to see two-way player Kenny Ishikawa. He has a 9.82 ERA. He's 1-1 on the year. 11 innings, 12 runs, 7 walks to 16 Ks, and opponents are hitting 262 against him. So, Georgia lost a lot of elite pitching talent from last year's team going into this season. However, your Friday and Saturday guy is pretty good. I say that, but Vanderbilt's Saturday guy, the last time they were here, is he had similar numbers. Opponents were not hitting for average off of him. He was pretty much shutting folks down. I think that's Wyatt Nadeau. And Mississippi State took him to town. I mean, they had no trouble with him whatsoever. Ran him from the game early in that game. So hopefully McMillan and Brian O'Connor have a great game plan for our hitters at the plate. You know, this is one of those series where the atmosphere can make all the difference, right? This is why you play at the Dude. This is why you hope to have 13 to 15,000 at each game because you're talking about a top 5 matchup at home in the best college baseball stadium in the country in front of record crowds. You've got 2 former Bulldogs coaching for the opponent. I mean, everything lines up here, and you're essentially playing for first place in the SEC. I mean, the loser of this series is going to have a hole to climb out of to get back into that first place spot. So there is a ton on the line this weekend with this series. And, can a team like Georgia, number one, can the pitchers for Georgia come into an atmosphere like the Dude? And can they put up the numbers they've been putting up all year? Well, like I just said, they have losses to Troy and Western Carolina and Kennesaw State. Um, but they also lost to Tennessee and they lost to A&M. Tennessee just got swept by Vanderbilt. Mississippi State swept Vanderbilt. Um, A&M is kind of up and down this year. So can the pitchers do that in an atmosphere like the dude? That's going to be a big question mark. Can the hitters for Georgia walk into a ballpark that is way bigger than what they're used to playing in? Can they have the same success that they've had? Georgia's going to have either the offense or the pitching to win this series. The thing with Mississippi State is they're at home, and the dude makes a huge, huge, huge difference. Not only does Mississippi State have the pitching, but they also have the offense. It may not be bomb ball where we're hitting 87 home runs, but Mississippi State gets barrels, consistent barrels, hard contact, line drives to the outfield, and Brian O'Connor's not afraid to bunt. We're not afraid to run. We can manufacture runs in many, many, many different ways, and we have seen so far this season Mississippi State win ball games in a ton of different ways. So we have had the blowouts. We've had the one-run games where we had to drop a bunt perfectly and get somebody on second and then get a base hit to score them to win a game. We've seen us win in a variety of different ways. So that makes me confident that Mississippi State can win this series. This is a huge one. It is absolutely massive. Um, Last week, with Ryan McPherson out on Friday night, Brian O'Connor and Justin Parker chose to go with Charlie Foster, the lefty, to fill that Friday night role. And he had struggled up to this point in the season, and even having multiple opportunities to show what he could do, he still struggled. So Brian O'Connor and Justin Parker put a ton of trust in Charlie Foster on the road in Oxford against a ranked Ole Miss team, and he absolutely delivered. If Charlie Foster pitches the exact same way that he pitched at Ole Miss, then we will have no trouble with this Friday night game. They have chosen to let him roll again. So we're going to go Foster, Valinkas, and Stone this weekend. And if Charlie Foster can do what he did last week, I am extremely confident. I'm already confident in Valinkas. The other good thing we saw on Saturday, Valinkas was clearly off a little bit. He still pitched well, but he was still a little off and not his usual precision, sharpness on his sliders. You could tell something was off with him, but he got right. He settled in, pulled it back in, and he did what he had to do. And I'm very confident in Valinkas to get the job done in that game too. Now, Duke Stone on Sunday. If it's Stone versus Ishikawa, again, I feel great about that, but Stone's going to have to bring the walks down. This is not a team that you can serve up beach balls to and say, oh, we have a big lead. We can just throw it and let them do whatever they do. They will win if that's the case. We cannot do that with this Georgia Bulldogs team. You cannot give this team momentum. You cannot. We remember what happened a few years ago with the play at the plate and Johnny going after him and just what a situation that was. If that happens this series, we will lose. I 100% tell you. And make no mistake, we remember what happened that series, and Georgia does too. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder coming back because of that play that happened. And don't think they haven't watched that this week on tape. They have seen that on tape multiple times, and they want some payback for that. So we cannot let emotions get the best of us. You cannot give them any momentum. If they do, they will run away with it. This series is massive. I cannot wait to see what happens. I love this matchup. You have a bomber ball lineup against a lineup that does it a different way in manufacturing runs. You have two pitching staffs that have been dominant on the season. Um, this is going to be a good one, a really good one. This is what we built the dude for, was matchups like this that grab national attention. So we will see what happens there. Getting into some scores this week around the SEC, notice I did not recap the Mississippi State Grambling game. There's just not much to say there. Mississippi State pitched several people like they usually do. Ends up getting the run rule win there, 12 to nothing. Looking around the rest of the SEC on Tuesday, Ole Miss played an 11 a.m. game against Little Rock, and that game was close. That game was close for quite a bit. At one point, Little Rock even had the lead, and Ole Miss ends up pulling away there 7-4. Georgia beats Georgia State 14-9. Kansas beats Missouri. I mean, Missouri is just absolutely awful. Tennessee takes care of Austin P. Kentucky and Miami of Ohio. Kentucky gets that win 14-11. So a very high scoring game there. South Carolina beats Wofford 11-1. And Wofford, a very good team from the SoCon Conference. And South Carolina maybe finding some new life with Monty Lee there as the interim coach for them. Vandy takes care of Belmont, Oklahoma over Oral Roberts. Texas A&M blows out Sam Houston. Alabama beats Jacksonville State by 1 run, 4-3. But again, Jacksonville State currently 9-0 in Conference USA play. A really good team out of that conference. Texas beats Texas State. Again, Texas State, a great Sun Belt team. However, Texas only beat them 10-8. And we've already seen Tarleton State beat Texas. LSU takes care of Southern University 16-6. And then three surprising um, outcomes here. Florida coming off of sweeping Arkansas in Fayetteville. Arkansas is not that good of a team this season, but it's hard to win in Fayetteville. And Florida coming off of a sweep in Fayetteville turns around and loses on Tuesday night to Jacksonville 4-3. Then you have Auburn, who actually went on the road to Georgia Tech, the number 3 team in the country, and they get walked off for the run rule 13-3. Again, Georgia Tech is the number 3 team in the country. However, Auburn having a pretty good season so far, um, but just not even showing up for that game. And then our good friends, the Arkansas Razorbacks, likely to be unranked moving forward, depending on what happens this weekend, losing to Missouri State in Springfield, neutral site game, losing 15-14 against Missouri State after already having losses to Arkansas State. They have had some bad losses. They lose to Arkansas State. They've lost to UT Arlington. They split a series 2-2 with Stetson University. And then they end up losing one of the games to South Carolina, swept by Florida. And now they lose a game to Missouri State before going on the road to a very hostile Auburn environment. Auburn, their crowds have been record breaking pretty much all year. And that crowd is not going to go easy on the Razorbacks there. So this could be a big turning point for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Florida, like we mentioned, just swept Arkansas. Mississippi State just swept Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is going to Gainesville this weekend. So what looked like Florida kind of turning things around and getting ready to go on a run here, you lose to Jacksonville. So Be interested to see what happens there in Gainesville, another great environment. If Ole Miss ends up getting swept 2 weekends in a row, or even just losing the series there on the road, that's going to put Ole Miss in a hole that I don't know that they climb out of. So, a great, great weekend coming up of Mississippi State baseball, SEC baseball as a whole. I cannot wait to see what happens there. Um, we will see. We will be back with you to recap. Quick softball tidbit, real quick. We mentioned how important it was for softball to come away with a series win after starting the SEC season not very well. And what do? They end up taking 2 of 3 from a top 25 ranked South Carolina team to move to 4-5 in conference, 32-7 overall. However, it does not get any easier from there, as they are actually playing a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series. They will be on the road at number 5 Florida. Then they have number 9 Arkansas, number 16 Texas A&M, number 22 LSU, and then they play an unranked Ole Miss team to finish it out. So an absolutely brutal schedule for the softball program as they move forward through the rest of this season here. Honestly, if you win any of those series, you are sitting pretty. So, a great overall record. They've got to keep their conference record alive here over on the softball field. So that does it for the neighborhood tonight. Like, subscribe, comment, join the neighborhood. We'd love to have you as one of our subscribers, where we will be here with you each week breaking down Mississippi State baseball, softball, and then before too long, we will be getting into some football action as spring practice is going on right now. Hearing good things there. So we will be back with you next week, hopefully to recap a big weekend where hopefully we win and or sweep the series against the Georgia Bulldogs. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hail State.